Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Just checking my levels are all good. That we're both live on Spreaker and on YouTube as well. I remembered I've got to do another million other things. Anyway, we have just finished watching AEW Full Gear. For me, it is 5 a.m. in the morning. For Jan, I don't actually know I can't remember which time zone he lives in. I'm going to guess Eastern, even though it might not be Eastern. Either way, it's close to midnight for Jan as well. We have watched quite an interesting pay-per-view from AEW. Their first of the TV era and the last of last of 2019. That's the bloody year we're in. It's 5 a.m. I'm going to be all over the place. It's going to happen. My alarm today, this is an immediate tangent, so my alarm today went off at 8 a.m. because I needed to get up that early to finish my column, which is up on Laws of Pain if you want to go read that about the wrestling of this week. But yeah, so I've been up since 8 and it's now 5. So during this show, I will fatigue. It's going to be quite an interesting adventure for us all. But we have watched a very, very interesting show. It's fair to say the mood coming in to doing this Aftershock is a little bit different. It's nice. It's a hell of a lot nicer than the last Aftershock I did, which was after Hell in a Cell. Like, just to put that out there, the atmosphere is so much better. Even though it's interesting, the atmosphere, it's still a hell of a lot better. I much prefer being in this state than the depressed state I was after Hell in a Cell, just questioning all my life choices. Just oh, I can laugh about it now, Jan. At the time, I was just questioning everything. It was so depressing. Anyway, so
one day you'll get to the level where I am, where I just don't care about anything WWE anymore, so I don't really pay attention to any of those reviews.
See, I made the really wise decision of covering everything in the wrestling world. So that was a very, very wise decision. Meaning yeah, and now I have to pump out a column every single week where I have no say in the matter. I'm watching everything. So that was a wise decision in a way. And I have
no idea how to watch everything out in the wrestling world.
Oh, I'm really struggling with NXT. Like, even though I love it, I've just closed my notes. I'm an idiot. Yeah, even though I love NXT, I really struggle to fit it in. Like, that is the one show which I'm always watching last, if I'm even watching it at all. So I'm already struggling, and I've got a column forcing me to do it. So yeah, right, I can happily say my stalling has worked. I've got everything finished. The Lords of Pain site is updated. That's all good. We can finally talk about the show. Anyway, Jan, so quick, I guess, overall thoughts before we jump into, I guess, the biggest matches of the night. First off, what are your overall thoughts on Full Gear, if that is an easy answer?
My overall thoughts on Full Gear are that the opening match was great. And the last two matches on the show were great, and everything else kind of just fell in the middle for me. Actually, I think that Cage versus Pac was great too. But I think like the middle of the show kind of sagged, honestly.
Yeah, with it was evident with Shawn Spears versus Joe Janela, because I kind of checked out as well. I will also say it was an interesting atmosphere for me because my brother came home.
I would never, ever check out on a Shawn Spears match.
If you listen to Kingdom of Honor Dynamite After Dark, you understand my laughter. That one. But yeah, at about 1 a.m, like right as the show was starting, my brother came home after a night out drinking. So he was around for like the first hour. So the first hour for me is a lot different than it was for most people who watch the show. Who, like, just didn't have distractions and things. It's like I had a drunk person talking to me for the first hour. So I might have missed a lot of spots. But it was... So, yeah, for me, I was checking out of the match, but I did have somebody talking to me as well. So I've got an actual excuse rather than just, the excuse of slightly being bored. But yeah, I do kind of agree. It started off obviously hot with the Young Bucks. Then the pace slowed down. Well, Pac versus Hangman was a nice solid match that kind of carried the momentum really well. Then we got Shawn Spears and Joe Janela, which felt like that should have been the match from the pre-show.
Absolutely.
Honestly, the match that Britt Baker and Bea Priestley did, in terms of the flow momentum of the match, I kind of feel like it would have been better placed here, especially because it was shorter. Like the next kind of just like a kind of energy revamp after Pac versus Hangman. Like for me, it feels like it would have been perfect.
Plus then you have 2 women's matches on the main show.
Yeah, and people like that, so I can't really complain there. Yeah.
Yeah, and this Priestley, Britt Baker thing has been going on for 3 months.
Yeah.
Whereas the Shawn Spears Joey Janela thing came out of nowhere on Dark, So I mean, it always was weird to me that Priestley versus Britt was on the pre-show. I thought that was a really weird choice to start with.
Especially as that has been like the only story in the women's division that's actually been built. So it's they were able to find a story with Sakura and Rio which really, really worked, but you had to be on YouTube or Twitter because it wasn't on any of the television. So I can't really praise it that much. So I do kind of like that those things are definitely canon, like the YouTube and the Twitter and whatnot, social media things. Because with WWE, you're having to second guess what is and isn't canon, and you just discard everything. With AEW, I feel like what I see, I can definitely relate to canon, but I do have to actually see it, which is like my main gripe with that thing. I loved the match, don't get me wrong. I thought it was fantastic, but definitely sagged. I saw quite a few people disappointed in the AEW World Tag Team Championship match. Personally, it hit all the notes I expected it to. And weirdly, it still felt like it was short. Like the same issue that it had with the tournament final on television. It felt like it had a few minutes short, and I was looking forward to seeing the match on pay-per-view where that shouldn't be an issue. But no, it was an issue. Same thing. It felt like they should have been just like 5 minutes more, just to hit a few more of those big moves and kickouts and whatnot, and just to build the momentum a little bit more before you hit that ending. But no, they needed to do the Christopher Daniels attack. So I guess that's what the time was reserved for. A bit off. I've already mentioned the Rio Emery Sakura match. The Chris Jericho Cody match, I feel like it had to change a bit after the accident. And we'll probably talk about the accident when we get to the match. But it was... it felt like it definitely changed the course of things. And I'm not sure if it made it worse or better. If it was one of those matches where the injury actually heightened the amount the crowd were behind Cody, or if it just like took away momentum, it took ages to get back. It could be both, to be fair, actually.
I think it's both. It's both.
Yeah, we'll get into more detail. We'll probably talk about it. But I want to start with the unsanctioned lights out match. The reason the atmosphere is interesting at the moment. We're also live on YouTube and Spreaker. Spreaker's got like a speech bubble you can click on to send us a message. YouTube's got live comments because it's YouTube. And I'm going to move Jan because I made the mistake on my last live show of not seeing the live comments because I had my notes up. So I'm slowly learning. If you've got a chat, make sure you can actually see the thing. So slowly getting better. But yeah, so Untitled Lights Out match. Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega. Jan, what did you think of this?
I think it's up there for me in terms of match of the year. Coming into this show for sure, my match of the year this year is Cody versus Dustin from Double or Nothing. But this one I thought was just awesome. I mean, there was just so much stuff going on. Things I was not expecting, and great callbacks too, like the glass table that Moxley had thrown Omega through at Double or Nothing came into play here as shards of glass. We finally got a payoff on the barbed wire bat and the barbed wire broom. The V trigger through the the spotlight, the glass AEW thing was just an amazing moment, as was them both getting suplexed onto the spider web made out of barbed wire. And then that just amazing, or I shouldn't say amazing, but with Moxley tearing the ring apart and all that stuff, and then that table full of mouse traps was just, my mouth was open when I saw that. And my wife even was here. She's like, "Oh my God," it was just so much happened in this match that it was just and you know there was such a build up to it. I just thought it was great, absolutely great.
Like one thing that sometimes can happen with this kind of match is it ends up becoming quite spotty, as in it feels like you're moving from one thing to the next, and maybe they've got something something mental. To be fair, there probably is stuff metal. There's something mental to end on. Like the last main event match like this that I watched was WrestleMania weekend. It was one of the GCW shows. The one with it's Jimmy, can't remember his bloody name. Jimmy something McGovern that GCW have for like main event in these kind of matches. And it was like a crazy spot at the end, like I was gonna say I can't remember what it was, but a spot like it was kind of like the guy that edited John Moxley's video. Oh, what's his name? Famous hardcore.
I have no idea.
So the guy who edited John Moxley's video with all the hounds chasing him after he left WWE. He is a really famous hardcore wrestler, and there was a spot that he did where he took a weed whacker to the stomach. So, yeah, so when I say it was something like that, I can't remember what the weapon actually was. So it was a garden tool of sorts. But it was one of those matches where it seemed to like build and build and build, and it had that crazy spot at the end, and that's what it was building to. This match felt like it was still building story. It never fell into that trap of just becoming, we're going to go to the next crazy spot, and whilst you're down recovering, I'll build the next one, and you put me through that. Like, it never fell into that trap, and that's a very dangerous kind of balance to be playing with this kind of match. And they nailed it. like again, for my I researched it was Anita versus Chono from ages ago, where they did a death match explosive barbed wire death match at the Tokyo Dome. I had to research a lot of Anita. Anita does a lot of explosive random barbed wire stuff. He's quite a violent man, and yeah, so I even felt like some of his matches fell into that, or at least definitely other matches on the cards that he was on. Like the other match would get the spots and they'd be violent and people would get that, but Onita made you give a crap when he was doing it, which is they gave a crap about him, about his well-being, about his opponent's well-being, and that's the difference in the balancing act. And Moxley does that, and obviously Omega is a fantastic wrestler with telling a story inside a ring. You put the two together, and my Twitter feed, because I was quite interested because I got quite a few like journalists or people my age who grew up, who got into wrestling maybe just after the ECW boom. So we were just after that violent period. WWE still doing blood stuff, but it was WWE blood. So it's not really hardcore. It's Extreme Rules. It's not ECW hardcore. So I was interested to see how they would take it, and they were comparing it to Randy Orton versus Mick Foley. And I kind of understood the reason they were doing it, because their example was the hardcore wrestler and the wrestler, where that wrestler actually steps up and takes as much damage as the hardcore guy, where quite often it's the other way round. And I was like, actually, you know what? I do like that reasoning for the comparison. Like, it probably ends there, but I do like the reasoning behind it. It's like, yeah, Kenny Omega stepped into Moxley's world and took as much as he dished out. I think that was the thing that shocked me. Like the mousetrap thing he brought up. As soon as that came out, it's the wrestling law that whatever weapon you bring to the table, you will get hit with or go through or whatever. And when he got out the mousetrap, I was like, oh, but surely Moxley's taking that one because that's the crazy one.
Right.
Yeah. Keep in mind, at that point, that's when I thought, no, that's the crazy one. Little did I know, soon to come was much, much worse. But yeah, like
right, and then that happened, and then Moxley grabbed the chain, and I was thinking, okay, for sure, Moxley's going to get the chain first, but no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, the chain came into play for like 5 or 6 minutes before Omega finally was able to turn the tables on him and use the chain on Moxley. You know.
Well, my favourite comment on that was somebody on Twitter just bringing up the point that Kenny Omega in the video package was joking, like, a standard wrestling match. What do you think we're going to do, John? Chain wrestle? And then he gets out a literal chain. Starts choking him with it. I was like, oh, that was brilliant. Well spotted. I like that. But yeah, another point that someone brought up was just questioning. It's like, oh no, it's surely that these mouse traps are gimmicked or something. They're just going to do a little pop, and it's not going to be that bad. And then Kenny Omega landed on them. Oh wait, no, they're not. They're just mouse traps. They just literally stuck them onto a board. There's nothing more to it. Ah, okay, then that's pretty scary.
yeah, and it was like, and it wasn't that just that he landed on them. It was also he had to like try to crawl off of there without like putting his hands on another one of them.
Like, I like the comparison of that to when Moxley was on, got the switchblade out and he's cutting off the rope, the little ropes that were keeping the ring cover down. And he was just cutting all those off, and just very nonchalant, obviously exhausted, gone through a ton of crap, and then he's just walking across the mousetrap, not giving a toss. Like they might as well have not been there to Jon Moxley, as he was just walking across them, cutting the ring thing off, just hearing the pop noises as he's walking across. Just a little comparison between the two. Moxley couldn't even care about the presents, whilst Omega's like crazily like, oh my god, this is so weird. I think it's fair to say escalated. Put it lightly. Yeah. Was there any spot that made you kind of like your neck kind of tighten a bit? Just like, oh, okay, that's a bit far, or did it just all build really nicely for the way you wanted the match to go?
I think it built really nicely, but to me it was probably well, first of all, early in the match when Moxley was grinding the barbed wire bat into the back of Omega, made me cringe. Like, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe he's doing that. But then later on, it was the spots with the glass that were really doing it for me. Oh, especially when like the brilliant spot of Omega's strategy where he puts the sharpshooter on Moxley, and the only way Moxley can escape the sharpshooter is to crawl through the glass to get to the ropes. And not even get a submission, but then kind of pull himself up and get it, and then pull himself off the glass. It was just like, what a psychological spot that was, because it's like, I have no escape for this other than just to try to crawl through these shards of broken glass to survive. Not even to win the match, but just to survive the match to that point.
Those little moments are what kind of elevated it from just hardcore spot match to an actual match with character and story. With just little moments like that. That was definitely like one of my favourite. Other one was when Kenny Omega was calling for the spider web of barbed wire. When he was calling for that, and they just did that little character moment of the other elite guys, just like, no, why would we? No, we're not going to do that. No. And of course, Kenny Omega, in his kind of crazed state that he's currently in, where he's not really thinking 100% logically like a pro wrestler or whatever, he's going to a different place, feeling the pressure of the weight of AEW, that he needs to succeed for AEW to succeed, and he's going to that next level with the spider web of doom. And like when and that's actually another example which you're talking about how storylines continue on being the elite, because we haven't really seen that much of that on actual AEW programming, but on being the elite, there's been a lot of dissension between the Bucks and Kenny about Kenny feeling like he was a failure because he's had such a losing streak going on. Yeah, and I feel like it is canon, just because of the way it does actually interweave and stuff like that. It is nice to kind of get that confirmation with this moment on the pay-per-view, because it directly leads from what has been happening. So that is nice to see, to kind of get that. We're getting little things confirmed, and I feel like we're getting more BTE-like stuff with the video packages leaking through now and the little promos that have been happening. Like the product is evolving really, really nicely, and getting those little things in. But this was really the first time we definitely saw a major thing that had been playing out on BTE get some light on a pay-per-view. So that was kind of a nice little character moment. And of course, when they did the spot onto the spiderweb, my immediate thought was just, in my past, I have definitely watched Sabu versus Rob Van Dam in that barbed wire rope match. And unless it was Terry Funk Sabu. It was Sabu. Sabu's the one I remember. And like Sabu wrapped himself in barbed wire and jumped onto his opponent, who was outside, also wrapped in barbed wire. And they all stuck to them and everything, and they had to get pliers out to cut them free of each other because they all got tangled. And I was just like, I watched that match, but for some reason in this match I was like, no, that's too far, Kenny. That's too far. He can't even suplex him on it. No, that's too far for me. So I've definitely been PG'd. Like, it's no question here. I mean,
Yeah, and then when that happened, you're like, okay, so these guys are like stuck to the barbed wire. Is this this no sanction thing really going to end in like a no contest because they can't get him off the barbed wire? but then they get him off the barbed wire, and Omega is like getting people away from Kenny, and then Kenny hits him twice in the head with a spotlight, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Actually, no, there was a spot my wife was working on this craft stuff while I was watching it, and she was kind of talking to me while I was watching it, and she was working on some crafts, and there was a spot where Kenny power bombed Omega onto the glass, and I yelled "Ah!" and I scared her so much she dropped some of her craft stuff over the floor.
I don't like so I can't do horror films because I'm a massive wimp. I don't like tension. So, but I know how a good one works. Like, just in that building up the tension. So the spots that get me the most are when he got out the piece of glass from the table that he'd been paradigm shifted through on was it the debut episode of AEW? I want to say it was.
Yeah, it was Double or Nothing. It was their first pay-per-view. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So then he gets a piece of glass from that table, and he's teasing that he's going to do something with it, and he tries to stab Moxley in the head with it. Don't worry, Moxley gets stabbed in the head later. He still get that, but he fought him off, and then he kind of wrapped his legs around him to try and force it again. Still didn't work, and in the end, he just grabbed his hand and opened up his fingers to make sure he could get the web, and then sliced the grass across the web of his fingers. It's just the teasing of it all, and then when he does it, that's the bit that gets me. Like the building up of that tension of he's introduced the gun but he can't fire it. He's trying to fire it but the other guy keeps stopping. That's the tension I'm not like. That's the bit that gets me. Like in horror, like my worst nightmare is something like Paranormal Activity, where it's 90% build and tension and 5% things happening. They're the worst films for me. I can't do it. I don't like those ones. Like, give me a film that will cure me jump scares over that. It was just so much, but yeah.
Right, and then that's just a terrible spot to have a cut on too. Like between the webbing of your hand, like you talk about horror movies, like you watch these shows, like these horror shows, and anytime they need blood, they like cut like the palm of the hand to drape like blood into like the witch's star or whatever, and I'm always like, you're gonna need that hand for something. You're gonna need to like cook with or write with, and they always do that. And now here, Moxley gets cut in the hand, and I'm like, well, he's not gonna be able to use that hand for anything for a few days.
Also, the thing that makes me, because I was watching Sabrina, which I think is set in modern day, and they're doing that sort of thing, and I was just like, it's set in modern day. We've got a really safe, nice medical ways of doing this now. Like, just go to a blood bank. We've got witches haven't caught up with modern medicine. No, this is what it is. Yeah, one day, Jan.
Or common sense either.
And that describes the reboot of Charmed. I'm not even going to get on that. Just no common sense. I saw the trailers and just immediately avoided it. Like, Jesus Christ, I used to love that show as a kid. Right. I realised I could talk about
I'm looking forward to the Buffy reboot. So.
Oh, is it getting me? For some reason, that's gone above my head. I did not know that's getting rebooted. Oh.
Well, it's technically not a reboot, but what they're doing is there's going to be a new show called Buffy, and apparently, like what the deal is that because she was such a successful and popular and Slayer who kind of like popularized the fact that there were Slayers. Now Slayers are going to be called Buffys. And so, like, this can be a new, like, Black Slayer, who is the new Buffy of her generation.
Okay. Also, it's the same world which has been massively influenced by Buffy having existed in it. That's an interesting idea. Actually.
Yeah.
That's better than Charmed. That's at least I can say that.
Well, Buffy was always better than Charmed. Come on.
Keep in mind, I was a child. So Buffy was too scary for me as a kid. Like that was kind of my line as a child. Like, Charmed that's family fun. You can watch that as a family. You can't always watch Buffy as a family, especially the There's the silent episode, which is fantastic.
Hush.
That's the one. Yeah. Yeah. As a kid, like I am not going to sleep after that. Just
No, you're not. Not for a month or so.
Like as adults, fantastic episode. Highly recommend it. Like even if you don't watch Buffy, I can still recommend that episode because it's just such a well done, self-contained story. But yeah, not with kids. Never in a million years. Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I mean though. It's that building of the tension. That's what that episode is. It's just building it all up, and just the presence of the thing is there. You can see it, but it's the fact that it's being teased. Nothing you can do. It's going to happen, and yeah, then he gets the web of his fingers cut by glass. So don't like it.
It was great.
Yeah, it's essentially the Jimmy Havoc special spot. So yeah, and who knows what his status is now after the weekend. So the torch has maybe been passed to Kenny Omega to be the crazy web fingers person, I guess, if he wants to carry that mantle.
Yeah, and it's crazy because coming in, I would have thought Kenny Omega would have been like right up there in the running to be the first AEW World Champion, and here we are, 3 pay-per-views in, and he doesn't have a victory on pay-per-view yet. It's crazy.
Yeah, I like the longer story they're telling with him, and like in my predictions that I did.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I predicted this kind of exact outcome for it, just because like what happens on Dynamite TV and what's happened to these characters matters come the pay-per-view. I think that's like one massive writing difference between AEW and WWE. On the night in WWE, you can predict a surprise because literally anything could happen. What's happened on the television doesn't necessarily matter. On the pay-per-view, anything can happen. AEW, it just feels like the more you pay attention, the more the result makes sense and it matters, and it just has a lot more to it. So the context of what happens on the show does matter, and it does inform you of the story that's going to be told on the pay-per-view. I really, really like that. It's a massive difference between the two, especially of what we're used to. Because I feel like Full Gear was a fantastic example of a show full of stuff that, as wrestling fans, we've just not seen for ages and we're not really used to seeing. And the main event was it just encapsulated that. Like the main event was a ball of violence that we have not seen on television in quite a long time. It was
and it was even better than the Janela Moxley one we saw at I don't even remember what show it was now. Was it Fighter Fest or?
Yeah, that would have been Fighter Fest.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I really like the way that they've set these things up so that they can actually have 2 main events. And it makes sense that they're 2 main events because one of them is the main event of the actual wrestling show, and then the other one is the main event when the lights go dark and it isn't even sanctioned.
Makes me laugh.
As opposed to WWE saying we have 5 main events at WrestleMania.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it because there were people who've been built up. I think this was brought up on the latest Dynamite After Dark, but there were quite a few characters who've been built up on television who just on the pay-per-view they just didn't have. It hasn't been built up, but they didn't have something that had been built up for the pay-per-view, so they're not on it. Like Darby Allin, he's been built up. They could have easily just jammed a match in for him if they wanted to continue feature him, but wasn't really necessary. If they're going to feature him, just have him watching on during a match, which they did for I think it was the women's match he was watching. It was kind of funny because whenever they did a wide shot, you could just see his head glooming in the background. Just him watching and brooding. I thought it was quite funny. Just random.
But I will say, just to piss you and Jeff off, that he should have had a match on there before fucking Shawn Spears did.
I am the guy who had a podcast called Perfect 10 Wrestling for years. So,
I know.
Yeah. So, a slight bias my end. We'll talk about
none whatsoever for me.
We'll talk about Shawn Spears in a bit more detail when we get to actually having to talk about his match.
Do we have to?
You can talk about Janela's gorgeous hair for a bit. Just focus on that. I like how like every commentator at some point just gets lost. They just suddenly realise it. It's like, oh my god, you're right. His hair is amazing. That's them gone for the match. As I just sit there with that realisation. I do like that about Janela.
And he lost the match, and he officially lost his girl. So
yeah, because the British stole his girl. Oh, yeah.
now she can be the super bad girl instead of just the bad girl.
I like that. To be fair, he did say that, didn't he? It was and it's a nice little setup for Janela without Janela being there. I like.
Right? Yeah. No. She said it. She said, "Why be bad when you can be super bad?"
Yeah. Again, that was during my point of a drunk person talking to me, so I didn't exactly grab everything. But yes, the main event was something entirely different. To quote Monty Python, it was very violent. I'm just retreading ground just to kind of wrap up the point with this match. Moxley winning, for me, again, we were touching on it. That is the perfectly right result. It feels like he and Pac, for me, going into the show, I thought they would be the two to maybe go next to Jericho, but I guess with Pac losing, that only leaves Moxley. And why not, I guess? Because they're in this place where they obviously want to build new stars, and they obviously want to make the Elite the kind of new stars and not feature too much WWE guys. But in these first months, the people who are already over and you can use to sell like main event championship matches are those former WWE main event guys and the Elite. Aside from that, you're gonna have to spend time building them. And maybe the first half year of their existence, I'm expecting Moxley, Jericho, Omega, obviously Cody. I feel like he'll still be in the main event scene, but he's doing his stuff with MJF now, which was done fantastically. But if they're not the Elite and they're not former WWE main eventers, it's going to be a little while before they are main eventing pay-per-views. Because they're going to build them up, and they're doing it really well. Like Darby Allin in like no time, and for some reason the other guy that really came to mind was Orange Cassidy. But there's the two people who've become insanely popular extremely quickly. Orange Cassidy won't be in an AEW World Championship match. I can almost guarantee it, but I don't want to throw my hat on too firmly because I feel like
I sure hope not.
He could be a guy who wins a battle royal when he was trying to lose it or something, or didn't care, but somehow he wins and he gets a championship match, and people are like, "Oh, I'm interested to see how that goes." He doesn't win, obviously, but it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere down the line something like that happened. But that's why you invent a mid-card championship, so he can do that without much consequence. It's the perfect kind of position for him.
Wouldn't that be like wouldn't actually be the perfect way for Cody to actually get another world title shot? Is like Orange Cassidy wins and then he just kind of shrugs it off and gives it to Cody.
Just gives it to him. Like,
yeah, you can have it.
What do you
I kind of disagree with you about Moxley being the next contender for Jericho simply because his victory over Omega doesn't mean anything. It wasn't an official match. It doesn't count towards his record. Meanwhile, the number 3 guy in the promotion beat the number 2 guy in the promotion, while the number 1 guy can't get a title shot anymore. So really, Paige is right back in line for a title shot now.
Yeah. I feel like obviously they've now got a really long period before the next show, which I'm assuming will be January, February type of time. So they've got quite a big period to build and transition and move about that top 5.
They do. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you are right.
And also, Jeff and I talked about on Dynamite After Dark that I think the January paper-per-view might end up being like Bunkhouse Stampede, and it might not even be a title match there because it might be, like 5 members of the Elite versus 5 members versus the 5 members of the Inner Circle in kind of a War Games style match, but they call something else.
Well, it does feel like that's where they're naturally building to, as in it makes all the sense because they're building all that tension between the Inner Circle and the Elite, and this was kind of like their first proper clashing in a formal setting, and it makes sense to continue that. Really, just keep the momentum going as it is. There's not really much need to divert that much. Cody's now got his stuff with MJF, but the rest of the Elite are still clashing majorly over the Inner Circle. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I was thinking about the championship, like who's going to be next in line to defend it, but no, you're right. The Inner Circle versus the Elite especially that's where they're building to, and they've kind of hinted at stuff maybe, but I can't tell if that's because they know where they're going with it or if they're Triple H'ing us, where in November he'll just build to 20 different matches. One of them might come off, and then suddenly you can go, "Oh, I hinted at it back in November." It's like you hinted at like 20 different matches, but fine, I guess. If you set them, you set them all up so that that's the Triple H tactic. I don't know which one they're doing.
Shotgun approach. You just shoot a bunch of things, hoping it'll hit something.
Yeah, that's essentially it. Like he did it last year with Batista, where when he was on SmackDown, they just did a thing just in case, and turns out worked. They did. So it was good to shoot the shotgun and randomly hit Batista. I was like, oh, that'd be good, wouldn't it? And then they did that. Yeah, but yes, right. Main event was the right call. I love the story that they're doing with Omega as well, where he's just feeling the weight and the pressure of being the megastar, the hottest act, the best wrestler, or whatever for AEW, carrying the company on his shoulders, and he's feeling the pressure and maybe thinking about things a bit too hard, getting in his own head, driving himself a bit crazy. This match was that force kind of driving him forward, where he has gone over the edge essentially, and he was trying to match Jon Moxley, which isn't recommended. So so a very, very violent match. If you are somebody who's not watched the show and for some reason is listening to us, if you've got kids, maybe not. But if it's just you, then
yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say one more thing about the matches. I love that the finish of the match also rewards those of us who have paid attention to Omega's entire career. Where he tried to win the match with his lover's former finishing move, and instead he lost because of it.
Actually, I do really, really like that, especially because they hinted at it with the video as well on Halloween, where he is obviously on Moxley's mind, Kota Ibushi. The pressure of him having to try and carry this company, and he's feeling that pressure whilst Kota Ibushi is succeeding. Like, he's in that four-way for the main, not the four-way, like the mini little tournament thing that's going on. Kota Ibushi is the G1 Climax winner at the peak, main events of Wrestle Kingdom, and Kenny Omega can't win against anybody. And so he pulls out the Phoenix Splash and eats wood, like, painfully.
Right.
Like, Jesus Christ. Just, Credit to both Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega for both being mental. Like, that's the kind of thing that lifted this match. Both were crazy enough to just do mental stuff. Just to put it like that. But
we might see Omega becoming even more crazy now that he lost again. So.
Oh, we definitely will, especially in the build to the Inner Circle match. There might be a will he, won't he help them, and whenever he turns up, you don't know what state he'll be in, or you're going to get crazy Kenny Omega or World's Best Bout Machine Kenny Omega. Wouldn't be surprised if that starts to happen, just because he's just not right and unstable. But yes, really, really, I thought that kind of hardcore match might be something that I wouldn't enjoy, but I surprised myself. I did. Even when an ice bit came out, and that's when my neck started to tighten. That was my moment of, I've watched Pentagon Jr. versus Sami Callihan. Maybe I can see where this is going. Oh, the sound of the metal clanking it still scares me to this day. Just the shudder of that sound. Oh, bloody fantastic match. another example of the hardcore and storytelling mashing together incredibly.
Yeah, and that's from Slammiversary 2018. So just for anybody who wants to go back and find the one we're talking about.
Oh yes, yeah.
And you talked about will he or won't he, and that's a good way to lead into the main event, to the actual main event of the show, which was Chris Jericho defending against Cody, because it turns out Cody's best friend had this master plan all along, where for months it's been like, well, is MJF going to turn on Cody? And then we see, he comes out, he's helping Cody against the Inner Circle. He comes out, the Inner Circle's holding Cody to be attacked by MJF. He won't do it. Why? Because he doesn't want to join the Inner Circle, but he does want to betray Cody. And he does it in the most high stakes way possible, where Cody's put his chance to ever have a title match on the line here, and MJF throws in the towel for him, and then he's on his knees apologizing. He knows Cody's going to forgive him because he's Cody, and then he kicks him right in the nuts, literally and figuratively. It's just such a brilliant turn for MJF here. I've been arguing with Jeff for weeks about him being a babyface, that he's not, and now he finally shows his true colors, which is great.
It's the amount of emotions, because I will say I was fooled. I was taken for a ride by MJF's acting, like with the tears, like his eyes welling up whilst he was on the go. Like, he was so sorry that I've mucked up here, and the crowd were chanting "You effed up" at him, expecting Cody to maybe do something. And at that moment, that's where, like, on the roller coaster ups and downs, that's when suddenly I was thinking, oh wait, what if the next part of this story is Cody's angry at MJF, and that's what really tests their friendship? But no, you just got to emphasize the fact that, because that might accidentally to kind of cement it, that MJF might be a babyface, and then he's being tested by Cody, and then if he does turn, he's got reasoning to do it. This keeps him a heel. As in, he's definitely a dick. I think it's the best way to put it. It doesn't confuse anything. And I also loved the way that... I also loved Cody's reaction at the end of it, where Cody just kind of sat up and he looked, and the look on his face wasn't like, what the fuck just happened, or I can't believe he did this to me. It was that look that the frog should get when the scorpion stabs it, where I knew you were a scorpion all along, and now I got to deal with you. So I mean, it was great that that Cody got suckered there with the kick, but at the same time, Cody's not a sucker. He knew it was coming eventually, and now he's got to deal with it. I really loved that reaction by him. And I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into it, or if that was like what the intent was, but that's what I saw on Cody's face, where it wasn't like he was shocked. It was like he was exasperated, and now I got more work to do, because he always does the work. Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of emphasized with we all knew he was. He was the type of person to do this sort of thing. For me, it's both emphasised by the AEW Twitter account, where within minutes of it happening, they were tweeting out a really well drawn cartoon of MJF as Two-Face from Batman. Like, they had that at the ready, just because of like, come on guys, we all know he's gonna do it eventually. Let's just get it ready to immediately tweet out. It's really well done. Hi man, check it out. But yeah, it was done so damn well, because it got me, purely because I was thinking it's way too early to be doing this, so they're not going to do it. But me being so certain they're not going to do it also makes it the perfect time to do it, because I'll never be expecting them to actually do it. It's weird when you're in a world where most of the stories are told on like the really, really long form. That means when you do something like this, it stands out and it's not random or rushed. It works, essentially, when everything else around it also plays out to quite a long degree, which is I'm trying to make a point where if this happens in WWE, where they've been 6 weeks together, then they turn, the issue is the rest of the world only lasts for such a short term anyway, so it's more of the same. In AEW, the fact this only lasted 6 weeks, it makes it stand out. Obviously, canon wise, this lasted for ages. This build with MJF, but in terms of the TV universe, 6 weeks, started here, and now you've cemented MJF's character. I'm perfectly fine with that, because the world around it is more solid, makes more sense, isn't constantly flipping and changing every single month. It's the characters are static. What happens leads into the next, not just week, but following weeks, if not hopefully months. Because we've had such a solid first month, or first program from start to pay-per-view. That really is something that NXT nails, to be fair, where after the pay-per-view, the consequences of what happened are the first thing to commence, in a way. Like with Game of Thrones, episode 9 is where it all went down. Episode 10 is, well, now it's all gone down. Now what? And I really like that idea. NXT nails it, and I'm expecting AEW to do it. So I'm excited to go forward. But yes, Cody MJF, bloody brilliant. But what did you make?
Yeah, and the other thing is all Cody's friends and even him are now falling apart, and it's like now the hero's journey for them to overcome the inner circle can begin. Because now they're all at such a low point. Other than Hangman, Omega lost, the Bucks lost, Cody lost, and MJF betrayed Cody. So it's like Cody's at the lowest point he could possibly be at right now. So now it's time to do the work and get back to that point where the inner circle can be defeated by these guys coming back up. It's a classic story you'd read in X-Men or the Avengers, where they're defeated one-on-one. Now they have to team up and find a way to win together. It's just I love it. I love the way that everything is falling apart for them so that they can come back later on.
Yeah, I really like what I was talking about in my column this week when I was talking about AEW. It was pretty much just that state of you have to completely break down your heroes before you can build them up. It's a lot of issues you get in standard Hollywood films where, well, if you've ever been watching a Hollywood film and you get yourself feeling like you want the villain to win, not just because you think Jeff's a bit irritating. I don't know why I've cast Jeff as the lead. Of all the random names for me to pick, I've gone with Jeff as our lead actor in irritating standard Hollywood film. But yeah, so Jeff...
And honestly, nobody ever wants to cheer for somebody named Jeff anyway.
Yeah, who would cheer for a guy named Jeff?
That's like cheering for Kyle.
I'm losing my voice laughing at this. So for some reason you want Jeff to lose, and you really want the villain to win. Most of the time, if Jeff's in Transformers, for example, the biggest reason when you're watching Jeff and you want Leonard Nimoy to win, the biggest reasoning is mostly because you've been building up the villains. The villains are really, really interesting, and you're at that point where the villain is about to achieve a thing which will make them super powerful. In the case of Inner Circle, it's actually gaining control and winning and retaining the championships. In Transformers, when he's gaining that power, he either gains it and immediately loses it, or he doesn't at all, and that's at the end of the film. And it's kind of but I mean, the art was kind of you were on the verge of making a really good villain, but of course, end of movie, he has to die. That's not the case with wrestling, and of course, in a better written. I've purposely chose Transformers because I know that film was written as it was filmed, so hence why that happens in a way. It's you get a really interesting story, but of course you've got to end it at the end of the film. It's that's the same issue with WWE. Just look at Braun Strowman or Samoa Joe whenever they had them go up against Brock Lesnar. They'd be like, oh, he'd be awesome as a competitor. Yeah, but at the end of the film, he's got to immediately die. So what's the point building them up? But yeah, with WWE, wrong company. With AEW, they are building up the villains, and the best way to build up the villains in an action film kind of thing is to completely break them, destroy the heroes. And it isn't until they're at their lowest point and the heroes are on top with full control, that is when they can start their journey. Not within 30 minutes of finished it, but this is where they can begin. And I feel like we are finally at that point, just as Jan was saying. Finally we can start building. My voice is going after that. It's big. But yeah, story wise, I've really liked what they've done these first 6 weeks in dismantling the Elite. Next step is to have them be in that period of struggle, fighting upwards, even though they're in management.
Yep, exactly. That's the great thing about it too, is that it's and Jeff and I had mentioned this the other day. It would have been great if Jericho somehow got a spot where he had Cody's job for a while because of Cody losing this match. And just make it even more of a struggle where the Inner Circle's actually got a shoe in the door in running the company.
Yeah. But what did you make of the actual match itself? So this this is where I saw my Twitter a little bit split.
I thought it was really good. I didn't necessarily think it was great, but I thought it was really good. I thought it told a good story. I loved how Hager was thrown out of there, and so it looked like maybe the field was leveled a bit for Cody, and then it of course we know what happened. I loved Hager's interferences in it. I loved Jericho's taking advantage of Cody's mistake and smashing his face into the ramp. God, that looked terrible. And actually, like even at the start of the show, like I told my wife, I was like, I love the fact they have a raised ramp on this show. I've always loved the raised ramp because it leaves it. There's so many story possibilities of with that ramp, as opposed to any other setup there is in a wrestling show. But yeah, I mean, I loved the match. Well, at least I liked it a lot. Like I said, I don't know if it was great, but I thought it was really good.
Like, I'm personally taking a little bit of pride in the fact that the entire time after the announcement was made a few weeks ago about the judges being there, like, and immediately they got a lot of the critique was, well, now we blatantly know it's going to be going an hour, and I'm like, this isn't WWE. This is the exact point I'm making, where they're setting stuff up. That doesn't mean they're going to. It's the Chekhov's gun thing. In a film, they were
never going to go an hour. That was ridiculous.
Like, especially when you look at the competitors, and on Twitter when it started, they were like, "Oh, they're going at the pace that could be an hour." It's like, it's Chris Jericho. If someone's wrestling an hour, it's not him. He's not at that point where he can do that.
No.
But for me, when a film introduces Chekhov's gun, the reasoning isn't so they can immediately fire it. That's not why it's introduced. Introduced so you can build up the tension of the fact it's there and could be used, or you expect it to be fired, but that doesn't mean you fire it immediately. That's the view I had going in to this match. Like, I was expecting it not to be fired, and it wasn't. And I was like, suck it, Twitter. I was right. It didn't get fired.
And also, when they finally do fire it, they're probably going to be like more emphasis on who the judges are when that happens.
Yes. Well, yeah,
rather than just saying there's going to be 3 judges, and then they don't talk about it for 2 weeks after that. Especially,
it really made me laugh just because I was like, oh, be standard, right? Whoever they could ship in, and I'm like, what, Keiji Muto? It's just like such a high-profile name. Who was like, what are you even doing here? Did you come along with NJPW or something? It caught me by surprise, that one. It's just because Dean Malenko, Arn Anderson, yeah, that makes sense. Especially if you can just bring out legends from the back. It's like, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. It's just the fact that Keiji Muto was there. That really caught me by surprise. I was not expecting that, but I did enjoy every time I saw him just going, Keiji Muto. Muto Keiji.
Yeah, no, I expected Arn to be one of them. I expected Magnum TA, and I didn't know who the third one was going to be. So, I got one out of the 3.
Yeah, I don't think anyone predicted the Great Muta. He just came so out of nowhere. But that's the point you were making, because it was such a minor role as well. Like, the idea was legends sit at ringside, and again, our expectation was that they weren't going to do the 60, so whoever the judges were probably weren't going to be that high profile. That's why he surprised me, because I was expecting them not to be used, and it was quite clever, because in a way that twisted it into me thinking, oh, they might, maybe they could, and then they started doing a lot of, as I call it, pissing about wrestling, where Chris Jericho, yeah, he's doing stuff, but he's taunting people he goes to the judges directly and makes sure we see them by taunting Dean Malenko. Obviously, the longer wrestling watching person would know the storyline histories of Chris Jericho and Dean Malenko in the wrestling world. But yeah, he makes you know that the judges are there. And he talks to the crowd a lot, talks to Cody a lot. Piss-taking wrestling. The kind of stuff which is in there to make the match longer. But in terms of someone like Chris Jericho, making a match longer means they're probably going to 40, 38, or 30. I don't even know if they broke 30, actually.
No, I don't think so. And I didn't expect it. I expected it was going to go 25 or less, honestly.
Which it probably did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did. And, my favorite idea for a judge in this one was since he was going to be at StarCast 4, would have been the Yeti. Just so he was out there going, he's just sitting there going,
to pardon the pun, would he have been in Full Gear?
course he would have been.
Like people were taking the piss of what would Muto put on his card, and they're just like, oh, like they've put names, and then Muto's just got a spray of red mist just on his card. It's like, oh, you've not understood this, Muto. Like, no. Well, I don't know what the Yeti would have written, but yeah, he would have gone whilst lifting it. So well done. Well done, guys.
That would have been great, like if Jericho had like gone through all three judges, like first he gets in Malenko's face, then he gets in Anderson's face, and he gets in Muta's face, and Muta sprays him with the mist.
Awesome spot. But yeah, I kind of agree. The fact that Cody did end up getting that third eyebrow, it kind of did add to the match in a way, because of course that meant every single move of Jericho had an extra oomph. Every single time that Cody fought back, he felt like he was really fighting back that a little bit more because he had sustained such a visible injury as well. And in fact, it was one of those injuries that Twitter made me laugh because I'm assuming you weren't on it, so you've not seen the conversations that were happening. I eventually just started tuning them out.
I never pay attention to Twitter. No. That's not my scene.
So there was a genuine argument going on of whether or not Cody had bladed. Obviously, that taught me that there are quite a few people who don't know how thick blades are and how blades work. Like, you can't create a third eyebrow with a blade that they use. It's just, no, way too deep, way too thick, immediate. And also, the speed of which he would have had to do it, given that he landed head first, immediately looked up and there was blood. Like,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is there's no way. It could not have done. It could not have been done. It physically was impossible for him to have bladed at that spot.
Yeah. To that degree as well. Like,
right, but I mean, even like when you show the replay, you see it's just too fat. Like he hits head first. His hands are nowhere close to his hands are like by his body.
Yeah.
He looks up and there's blood there. There's no way he could have bladed unless there was a blade like just right there in that spot. And he just like lifted his head on that blade, and that would have been like the most precise landing and timing ever.
Well, it turns out Chris Jericho was actually on there placing the blade in like the gaps of the mount.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we've cracked it. But I feel like I don't know if you were watching when Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn mucked up his springboard off the ropes and landed really dangerously. Suddenly, because he seemingly knocked a little bit loopy, that added to every single move, and it was a similar thing here, but because of the gnarliness of it and the story they were telling anyway, it really added to Cody fighting back. And whenever he's on top with every single move he did, it added to that feeling of it's really taking a lot out of him to do this. Like, even when he was first locked in the walls, like, just the way that he was screaming into the camera, it was just it really looked like he, as a performer, was fighting through the pain, not just the wrestler, in a way as well, just because of how visible the injury was. That really helped me get into the match.
I agree. I mean, I don't know. It's so weird that this wasn't a planned spot because, I don't know if the ending of the match works at all, much less as well if Cody hasn't been bleeding.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because it is Cody that he would have bladed at some point. Like, Rhodes bleed on every AEW pay-per-view. That's the rule. So he probably would have bladed. So I feel like it would have worked perfectly fine. But yeah, it definitely the visual of it, especially with the blonde hair, the visual of it works so damn well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's why he dyed his hair blonde, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, remember he did it, and it really, really works. And he had to dye it dark again for a movie role, and that's when it hit me. Like, oh wait, no, the blonde really does work. It was when he went when we lost it for like a few months, and that's when it suddenly realised what we had. Like, blonde Cody, that is pure babyface Cody. It works so damn well. Also, we can't talk about this match without giving a shout out to Mama Rhodes, who beat the crap out of Chris Jericho, and just. My favourite part being that after her spot had blatantly ended, she leant over the barricade again and gave him another slap. Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah,
I love that.
The only part of the match I did not like, and I'm going to say, just because it's not consistent with the rules and it's not consistent with other things that happened in the match, is I don't think that belt spot should have happened. Like, because if the referee has to be distracted in order for Jericho to hit Cody with the championship belt, then why is he able to hit him with the weight belt without getting disqualified?
Yeah, it's the referee discretion where you see it sometimes outside of WWE, like you see it in New Japan or whatever, where they take off a belt, start whipping them with it, and it's fine. Obviously, in New Japan, I'm really bending because of Evil. Like, Evil will get out a chair and Red Shoes is just like, oh, no. This is just what Evil's like. That's fine. And he just sat there like, well, that's not rules. He's breaking the rules.
But she wasn't even counting. She was just saying, don't do that. She wasn't even counting. She finally just grabbed it and threw it out of the ring. But I mean, there wasn't even any counting involved. It was like, there was nothing that really would have lent to him any kind of a feeling that the match could have ended on that.
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't like.
Yeah, like for me, if they're gonna do it, it wouldn't be out of question for me if she was if Aubrey was doing something. Chris Jericho then starts whipping him, and then when she immediately sees it, that's when she does exactly what she did, because that was good, obviously, when she stops him. Also, I loved the shoving match that they had with each other that led into a pin. It's just yeah. I love the way that the referees have actual character, and you can tell that it's working because the crowd are chanting Aubrey's name, which is compared to WWE where they're just interchangeable robots essentially. They are background.
I thought it was great also that one of the announcers mentioned that I think it was X mentioned that we have certain officials that are just good for different roles. Like Aubrey's good at being the main event referee, and Rick Knox is great at being the multi-man match referee. I think that's a really cool idea actually.
Yeah.
Like referee specialties.
Not only do they have different characteristics and the referee discretion will change from ref to ref, but also they are better at certain types of matches. Yeah, it makes all the sense. They've got strengths as well. Yes, I like that. I didn't pick that up, but I do like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how real people are in real life. That you're better at like for instance, like my job. Part of my job is training. Part of my job is emailing people. Part of my job is looking up and researching things, and there's my coworkers and I there's different aspects that each of us are better at, and that's how I think that's how it is like with most people in most roles. Like you're not going to be great at every part of your job, but you're going to have something at your job that you probably are pretty damn good at,
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense that a referee would do the same thing here.
Yeah, like me, I'm a supply teacher. I'm fantastic at getting on with kids. That's kind of my biggest strength. There is something about me where kids just they do really, really like me. However, if you send me to if I'm you don't send me then to a kind of troubled school or a school where the kids are a bit troublesome. Just trying to find a way to say it nicely. Like I am not the teacher you send there. They are not. It's not to my strength at all. Whilst you can expect in WWE, because they are interchangeable robots, you can send them to any job. It doesn't matter. They're a teacher. They can teach, right? That's all. That's the only thing they need to kind of work. Yeah, but I like how we're doing that idea. Like, yeah, certain refs better at certain things, and when the match plays out, it's a different kind of match per referee as well. But I really, really like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. Speaking of things I also really liked. The AEW Women's World Championship. Rio defending against Emi Sakura. So I was complaining about the story coming in being pretty much non-existent to the point that Kenny Omega told it on Twitter. Which isn't a great start, I'll be honest. But at the end of the day, it is two Joshi wrestlers, teacher versus student. And it showed. Like the quality of this match is built and built and built. And it's like they went in knowing that there wasn't going to be much support for Emi Sakura. And they kind of built that over the course of the match, and like Jesus Christ, that ending sequence, it was like I was watching it on fast forward. Just like the speed of those counters was absolutely incredible. It was I don't think I've ever seen a back and forth sequence of counters like at that speed. It was extremely impressed. That was really, really good.
I agree. Yeah, that I mean, the match itself, I was kind of, I mean, no, I didn't have a drunk person coming in, but I was a bit distracted during this match. I think just because of where it was in the show and like stuff going on here in my house at the same time. But it really caught my eye, the ending of the match, the last 5-6 minutes with all those counters back and forth and everything. I thought it was fantastic.
Mm. It's like, I'll also say Sakura's backbreakers were insane. Like, she did some tilt-a-whirls and just hit them with such ferocity. And the way that Rio just bends when she gets hit with them, together they make those moves look so damn destroying. It's like Sakura's just broken Rio, but it's just the way that Rio bends just enough to make it look like she's generally bent her by hitting that tilt-a-whirl. And she hits it with such force that I was like, oh, it's like a match made in heaven. It's perfect. They both make each other look amazing.
Well, she's so light and small and flexible that I think that's just like her biggest strength as a wrestler. She sells so damn well because of those characteristics.
And that means that when she is trying to fight back and get momentum back, it's that you've seen her get absolutely destroyed, and it feels like she's fighting back that a little bit more, rather than just being like knocked down or whatever. It's like, no, she's like, genuinely, she's been bent all over and she's doing her best to kind of fight back after those knees were absolutely devastating or whatever. But in this one, she will use her foot stomp and she'll use it again and again and again, and there's a big variety of ways as possible, but it doesn't really get tired because most of the times it's a counter, or it's like after a counter or sequence or something, and like she wasn't planning to kind of end the match with that. So that was, again, it was another roll-up victory, but this is one of those things where you go, oh, roll-up victory, oh, that's bad. No, because context. There was things other than the roll-up. It wasn't a WWE roll-up where you get 3 minutes, go. That wasn't that kind of thing. It was a roll-up after an amazing countering sequence, and the fact that she was able to hold her down was like, the crowd were like, oh, she finally got it, and were up on her feet chanting her name.
And the other thing is just because of her size compared to the other competitors, it makes sense that she would have to have that her primary way of winning matches, against people that are so much bigger and stronger than her, is getting that surprise, or not even a surprise, but just like a trap pin where they can't escape from it.
Yeah, makes all the sense in the world. Yeah. Especially as it's that.
If you have somebody like Samoa Joe winning by roll up all the time, it's a lot fucking different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. Or if they do the other thing they've been doing recently, where it's Shorty G. Oh, I don't like it. Hurts. with
Whoa. He's being called Shorty G?
Yeah. And the best part about it is we all know how nicknames work.
Wait, there's a good part about it?
I am being sarcastic with it. So like,
okay. All right.
The best part about it is that Baron Corbin was taking a piss out of him, calling him Shorty Gable, and then his kind of jokey way to cope with that was to call himself Shorty Gable and own it, and beat the bully by owning the nickname and showing it doesn't affect him, which is normally the biggest sign that it's totally affecting him and it's working. But he then, after winning a match, went, you know what? Let's make it even shorter. Let's call it Shorty G. So the best part about it, the way nicknames work is the coolest people have self-imposed nicknames. Shorty G is self-imposed, which is just like, oh no, it makes it even worse. It's really bad, and he chose to be called that. Oh dear. Oh no.
So how long until he and R-Truth are a rapping tag team?
He's already like Baron Corbin's gone back to the main event, and he's already he walked in with Mustafa Ali to lose against Nakamura, someone in a bigger storyline with Roman Reigns. So he might be part of Roman Reigns' team at Survivor Series, or he won't be on it at all. So he's already at that point, King of the Ring final, to like immediately being a throwaway Survivor Series competitor.
Shocking.
Yeah. But the tone of your voice kind of exemplified it perfectly. Like the difference between Shorty G and Riho, like they are both smaller wrestlers, but like the sheer gulfing difference in the way that they're being presented. Even though it's still technically the way they are wrestling is emphasising their shortness, but it's to such a different degree. Like one is with Rio, yes, she's short, but that just means she changes the way she uses her offense. That doesn't mean she's puny weakling who should not be winning. That's not the story they're telling. She is good enough to win, and it's
right.
Just,
she's good. She just has to. She just finds a creative way to do it because she outsmarts her opponents and out wrestles her opponents.
Yeah, and Shorty G is an Olympic wrestler. He has got the tools, but no, he's 5 foot. I want to say 8, so that's it. He's done. Right off. I find it hilarious.
I think the moral of the story that you're telling me here is that I miss American Alpha.
Oh, they were brilliant. Sucks what happened to Jason Jordan, but yeah, they were bloody brilliant. Those two.
Yeah.
Right, speaking of bloody brilliant... Oh, wait, no. Oh, I thought I had an amazing tangent to Shawn Spears. But I don't, it's the wrong match. The match that actually is...
There is no brilliant transition to Shawn Spears.
I was thinking, if there is a way to transition to that match, this is bloody it. But no, it's not even that match. It was actually a really fun match we're going to talk about next. The AEW World Tag Team Championships Private Party versus the Lucha Bros versus the champion SoCal Uncensored SCU. This was from the very start right until the end. Fast-paced, incredible spot after incredible spot, reaching a point where you've got no idea who's legal, but people are doing awesome moves, so I'm in. And Ray Phoenix is doing Ray Phoenix things with a ramp. As Impact viewers, as soon as that ramp appeared, I was like, yes, Ray Phoenix is on this card. We're going to see something awesome. And
I love Ray Phoenix so much. Yeah, I know the popular opinion out there is that Pentagon's the better of the two, but to me, it's always been Phoenix. It always will be Phoenix. He's just amazing to me. There was a time where Rob Van Dam was my favorite professional wrestler on the planet. And to me, Ray Phoenix is the evolution of Rob Van Dam. I love his stuff so damn much. And I really want him to be a solo performer and not be stuck with Pentagon. Again, I know I'm saying it opposite from what a lot of people in the world are going to say, including Miz fan. But I love Phoenix so much, and I hate the fact that those guys are a tag team. Almost as much as I hate the fact that SCU are the tag team champions.
It's like, Miz fan, another lover of the ramp. Yeah. Old school wrestling fans, you can be happy now. You've got your ramp back. But yeah, Ray Phoenix. It's weird to say. I was like, I wish he could get away from Pentagon Junior and actually thrive. And it's weird to say that because they are both so damn good. They are both so amazing that, yeah, as a tag team, yeah, they are really, really good. But as solo acts, I feel like they are another level. Like they are like main event superstars when they are single wrestlers, and as a tag team, they are just a phenomenal tag team. It's I'm trying to phrase it in a way as a tag team, they are still absolutely incredible, but as single stars, yeah, I rate them as superstars, like as in like megastars. I'm talking
right.
Like Shinsuke Nakamura is a megastar in Japan. I'm talking like Pentagon Junior is that he's got such charisma and aura about him. He can generally be that. And Ray Phoenix, he showed it in Lucha Underground. He can very easily become that babyface guy that you just root for to fight through and pull off something absolutely incredible. And also, turns out, as we've seen here, he's also great as a heel. And I'd never seen him work heel before. So that was a really nice change of pace. Yeah, he had the best spots. It was amazing.
Have you really though seen him work heel? Because if you're doing that taunt that the crowd cheers along with you on, can you really be a true heel?
That's the point. It's difficult talking about AEW because they do that quite a lot. It's just that you do look at a character and go, oh wait, are they definitely heel? Because the amount of confusion about MJF, obviously, like people like us who have followed like being the Elite for so damn long, like we knew the character like the back of our hand really before AEW started. Especially if you watch MJF outside of being the Elite, and it's just watch MJF in his normal role. Like you know that character so damn well. But
Just watch MLW because it's so damn great anyway.
I'm struggling to find time. I've not managed to get time for Impact, or I'm struggling with New Japan, which is my number one. That is my main source. Is New Japan. Oh, there was a show tonight, and as soon as I saw it, it's like at the same time as AEW. Why do you break me so? There's so much.
I didn't even know there was a show tonight.
Yeah, it's Jushin Thunder Liger's last match in the US.
Oh.
Yeah. In a throwaway multi-man tag match, but it's still his last match. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's weird timing for them to have the same show on the same night as Full Gear. But I'm assuming they already had it planned before Full Gear was even announced.
Yeah, because with them being a foreign promotion, if I'm right, it takes a lot more time and preparation to do that. Yeah, that's my assumption. But I wouldn't be surprised if AEW are more working off of what WWE have got coming up, so they're trying to avoid them and get out of their momentum and make sure that everyone's focused on AEW when they have a pay-per-view, which would be smart. Like, that's what I kind of recommend. So, yeah. I suppose to go on another tangent, but I'll leave it. What do you make of Private Party?
Love them. I love Private Party. I actually asked my wife today if she thought I should, she thought I could pull off Mark Quinn's hair. And she said, do whatever you want with your hair, but if you wear clothes like he does, we're done.
I couldn't pull off that style. It's just
No, I'm sure I couldn't either, but I love it. I love that orange hair, almost like a dinosaur or dragon, dragon scale back. It's just great.
Oh yeah, the way that it kind of flaps like he's got wings or a tail whenever he flies is like,
yeah,
it works so well for a high flying wrestler, but as a normal person walking down the street, you do look a bit like a knob. It's just so much.
I don't care what other people think I look like.
I'm 27. I'm still right in that bracket where I care what people think. It's like, it'll eventually go away. I'm still quite young. Yeah.
Funny.
Also, it's so late. I can hear people getting up.
Private Party is great. They talked about how. Well, no, I'm not going to go that far. I was going to say they talked about how if the Young Bucks are the best tag team in the world, and Lucha Underground, the Lucha Brothers are number 2. And I was going to say I like Private Party better than I like the Lucha. Well, no, I do like Private Party better than Lucha Bros. So I wouldn't say they're the top. They're the second best tag team in the world. So,
but yeah, Private Party still have that new car smell about them, as in everything they do still feels fresh. Because I've not seen it that much. Even though they're inexperienced, they are extremely talented. And
I think what we've seen from AEW is that they're not going to get to the point where they're stale because they're always going to keep evolving things anyway. I mean, I guess it's only 6 weeks in, so I probably shouldn't make those kind of assumptions. But I do think that, like, even the Young Bucks, like right now, they're doing things that we've never seen them do before, like that stuff with Jackson with Matt and his Northern Lights stuff. It's such a new wrinkle on what they've done in the past that it's just amazing to me.
In past shows, I've compared the Private Party to the Harlem Globetrotters, just in that sense of their main point isn't just hitting the move or doing the thing; it's to do it with as much flash and style as possible.
Indeed.
And I just love that about them, especially as that suddenly clicked, that comparison. It's like, I feel like I get them now. It just like the reason for, or it's not just a flip, it's 20 flips or whatever it is, and of course just the high pitched squeal. I was about to try and mimic it, but that's not recommended at 6:20 when people are asleep. But it's that's quite his high pitched screams weirdly divisive on Twitter. I'm just like, it's fine. I didn't think it was something to critique. What about then? So, yeah, I love them. They're just fun, and you can tell by the crowd whenever their music plays, the crowd are just smiles on their faces. What's the crap WWE line of they love to have fun. It's just that this is a team that has generally got an aura of fun, and they don't need the commentary to go they love to have fun, because it's written all over the crowd's face. like the atmosphere changes when the music hits. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and also their entrance is just fun too. From a location where you need an invitation, weighing in a total combined weight of 24 ounces of vodka cranberry.
I love that.
I mean, just their entrance and just like their look and their energy, all of it makes you smile. I love it. It's great.
Obviously, that popped my brother because he was literally like a few minutes beforehand telling me about caramel vodka, and then when he heard that announced, I was like, "Oh, this is a little bit interesting." It's like, "Yes, drunk brother, go to bed. It's 3 a.m."
I feel like Private Party hits me the way that the Street Profits were supposed to. The Street Profits don't hit me the way don't hit me that way, but Private Party really does. So.
Yeah, I feel like one half. The thing that really works for Private Party is they're both of the same amount of absolutely insane athleticism and speed. Street Profits fills more into, you got the slightly bigger guy who can power his way through, and then you've got Montez Ford, who is the guy full of energy. Private Party is like if they were both Montez Ford, which is a bit mental thinking about it, but that's the kind of amount of energy that Private Party bring. That's more what they're like, and I can't rate them, and especially for a team so inexperienced to already be at this level and to be having such great matches. It's great. For me, moving on to the champions, SCU, for me, they are the...
Sorry, go ahead.
I kind of rate them as not the team I'm super invested in. Like, I have fun doing the SCU stuff. It's not on my nerves or anything. I like doing the SCU because I'm quite childish. I'm fine with that. But also, I see them as the experienced veteran tag team, which they are, especially if you're showcasing younger, more inexperienced teams. Like, yeah, perfectly fine with putting the younger guys with the solid veterans and just kind of have those two working. Like, it pretty much guarantees you've got a veteran tag team in a tag team championship match, like every single time. Where for me, there's nothing wrong with that, and they're solid. Like, they're extremely solid. Like Frankie Kazarian, he's been solid for what 15 years now. He's been of such a just standard solid level. Like, he's the guy you send out in the middle of the show, and he'll do a bang up job for that exact spot. And it's funny you say that, because if it wasn't SCU, but it was the Addiction that were the tag team champions, I'd be totally fine with it. But I just have never gotten the SCU gimmick. I don't get Scorpio Sky. I don't see him as the talent everybody else sees him as. So if it was Daniels and Kazarian, and they were about to be the Addiction, or what were they before that? I'm trying to think. Bad Influence. I'd be totally fine with it. But I mean, I don't like the SCU gimmick. I'm not a fan of Scorpio Sky, and it's just like, I feel like there's so many better tag teams out there, even in right in AEW. I mean, the Bucks are better, PNP is better, the Lucha Brothers are better. I enjoy Private Party more, and the Best Friends I enjoy more. So I mean, to me, it's like maybe the 6th or 7th best team in the division are the tag team champions, and it drives me nuts. I've been, I was kind of with you with Kazarian and Daniels. I became massive fans when they were Bad Influence. Like, the god awful AJ Styles cheating on somebody, can't remember her name. Like, that storyline was god awful, but it gave us Bad Influence, and therefore it was 100%. I am thankful it exists, because Kazarian and Daniels are amazing together. There's a reason they've stayed together ever since. It's been like a decade now since that mental storyline. Scorpio Sky, I agree to an extent that he's rated extremely highly by quite a few people. For me, I've never seen him greater than really good in a tag match, and that was like with I'm trying to find a good comparison, but can't really find it. There are those wrestlers who are really, really good in those tag team matches, and the way that they turn on their explosive side of their wrestling to start amping the crowd up. Scorpio Sky works really, really well in a tag team match. Whenever I've seen him wrestle singles, I've kind of struggled, which is my little worry, because it feels like with the way SEU's always been built, is it feels like this was more. Like Daniel, there are three people who really get along, like in real life, but Daniels and Kazarian are on the older side, and Scorpius. This is a kind of vehicle that will, in theory, get Scorpio Sky over in the long term, which it probably has done, just maybe not with us. Just that I do fear that once SEU does come to an end, that Scorpio Sky might be a little bit exposed, but he's like obviously. Not everybody thinks that way, because he is really very highly rated by quite a lot of people for a reason, I believe. Even if I'm not going to enjoy every single wrestler. That's just not how it's going to work. Maybe Scorpio Sky's just that guy for me, but I do really like him in a tag team. I feel like it really, really works his style, where he'll have a moment of explosiveness, and it works really well in a tag match. But I feel like it's not quite right for a singles kind of post SCU run. Which that's my only fear, really, with SCU, is it feels like it's a vehicle to get Scorpio Sky over long term, and I feel like it will work, and it's only a fear because I'm not quite buying it. Whilst I'm trying to explain it, I'm not buying it.
That's an absolutely fantastic analysis of the situation. I feel exactly the same way.
Oh, ask.
The only thing I would say is that he's not that much younger than Frankie Kazarian. He's like 35, 36 years old, I'm pretty sure. So I mean, it's like there's so many other young guys in the promotion that should be getting the look rather than Scorpio Sky. You know,
he could be the guy who gets those Daniels spots, which Daniels had for quite a while, where he's the respected veteran that doesn't actually win any world titles or anything, and maybe he gets a match, but really he's just in the mid card still for most of his career. Yeah. I'd have no issue with that, because it feels like there is a need for a mid-card title in AEW, especially as things are slowly falling into place, and I'm perfectly fine to nominate Scorpio Sky as a mid-card guy. For me personally, I've already thought about this. Like, who would be my first mid-card kind of championship and scene? If you're going for Ray Phoenix, for me, is the perfect guy to kind of put in there, where you've got your main event guys. They're probably going to put Pentagon Jr. If Lucha Bros split, Pentagon's going to the main event immediately. But for me, Ray Phoenix as a mid-card champion, like that intercontinental kind of role, he would absolutely nail that. It's just, I'd eat that up.
Yeah, I think Ray Phoenix on the babyface side and MJF on the heel side.
Oh yes, I rate MJF so much. He's so damn good.
Meanwhile, we can have Shawn Spears take on Scorpio Sky for the title of most bland wrestler in the promotion.
Speaking of really good guys, I found a way to transition to it. Shawn Spears with Tully Blanchard versus Joey Janela. So this is prime drunk brother for me. So I didn't see a lot of it, but he somehow spotted something I didn't. So when Shawn Spears tied Joey Janela's hair to the tag rope, but some people on Twitter were just like, "Oh yeah, why don't other people just do that with long hair wrestlers?" It's one of those things that just exposes it and go, "Oh yeah, why don't you do that?" But he tied his hair to the tag rope, and then he kind of pulled himself free of it. And my brother noticed that for the rest of the match, in the tag rope was some of Joey Janela's hair. Like, he didn't get out scot-free. There was just dangling there for the whole match. Apparently there was a shot as well where Janela was doing a clothesline or something, or charging for something, and it's kind of like in the bottom corner of it you could see the tag rope, and in it was his hair, and then he was going to charge for something. So good production and camera work, so well done EW for that. Match as a whole though, this was as we said earlier, for me this felt very, very pre-show, and I would have rated it easily as my least favourite match of the night, and it would have made sense for me to the match we've actually built story to, and Britt Baker, B. Priestley, put that on the main card. Spears, Janela, wasn't really much angst going into it, and coming out of it, the crowd kind of lost a bit of momentum. So I think there's quite a lot of people in your boat where AEW trying to make Shawn Spears happen, and the immediate reaction is, stop trying to make Shawn Spears happen. It ain't going to happen. So
right.
Yeah, I get that vibe. Like every single time there's a Shawn Spears match, that is the vibe I get.
Shawn Spears is the fetch of AEW.
Like he's
I'm sorry if you don't get that joke, but it's like from Mean Girls. Like one of the Mean Girls was trying to use the word fetch like to make cool or fresh, and the other Mean Girl, like the head Mean Girl, said stop with fetch. It ain't gonna happen.
Like with when Gorilla Monsoon was like doing his best to get over. Oh, it's a happening here in wherever it was. It was like stop trying to. You can say it's a happening, but I don't think it's going to get over, Gorilla. No one's going to be walking around going, it's a happening.
Of course it's a happening. Everything is a happening.
I love however it's gotten, like, long-term with wrestling fans. Just that it's a happening here in the Wells Fargo Centre. Like it didn't work, but we remember it fondly.
Yep.
But yeah, for me, I'm fine with Shawn Spears, but he does have a ceiling. So I don't know if their idea is to try and slowly build him back up to where he was before the Cody loss, where he felt like he's perhaps being built as a big deal. Like I really, really liked the way he was used at Fight for the Fallen when he had an upcoming match with Cody. It was just after he'd hit Cody with the chair over the head, so he was getting quite a strong reaction. And they put him in a tag team match where he was teaming with MJF. Easily my favourite Shawn Spears moment.
And Sammy Guevara.
Yeah, and Sammy... Oh, of course, the pre-Spanish God, Sammy Guevara. Where he was just a flippy guy who was a bit of a dick. But he wasn't full-blown Spanish God yet. But yeah, I really, really like that dynamic, especially with MJF. But since then, he's not really... Since losing to Cody, he's not really done anything. It's like they've known that his momentum has been massively damaged. And... he's slowly being used a bit more now, but that momentum definitely is not there. Losing to Cody definitely made him feel like lesser of a deal, and now it feels like at the moment he would be a guy I'd nominate to, like, if you're having a mid-card title, I'd put him in that scene. Obviously I've already said Ray Phoenix would be my champion, MJF the definite number 2 contender, but Shawn Spears for me, he feels like he's probably going to get stuck in that mid-card. And he's going to struggle to get out. Probably because the fan response isn't there.
Yeah, and if that's where he is, then I'd be fine with him. And I was fine with him where he was on this last week's AEW Dynamite when he was against Brandon Cutler, and I really am fine with him having a match against Joey Janela too. I just don't understand why he's the one getting all the pay-per-view spots, and when really, to me, Jimmy Havoc and Darby Allin would have been a better, better people to be on the card versus instead of Spears. That's all I was saying is like Spears. I feel you said that he has a ceiling, and I feel like he started at his ceiling when he was against Cody at All Out. So now there's like nowhere for him to go but down, because his first 2 singles matches in the promotion were against Cody and against Jon Moxley. So it's like he started off against two of the top guys in the company.
Yeah.
He has nowhere to go but down.
Yeah. And they can slowly build him up, but yeah, it felt like he's had his ceiling established, and I don't know if they've got anything in plans for him to break through. The fact that Tully Blanchard is still with him makes me think there's still a plan for something. Don't know when, don't know what. But yeah, it was nice to see Tully hitting I think we'll call it the Tully Stone pile driver on Twitter. Obviously, because he just didn't do much at all. It was quite funny the way he just jumped off the steel steps and helped with the tombstone pile driver on the outside. It led to the finish. Nothing wrong with the match per se, but it felt very pre-show just on the main card, and that didn't help with momentum, given that everything else around it built really, really well, and because that's such a high pace, this one kind of stood out for bad reasons in a way. So
yeah, I agree.
So next,
I mean, it wasn't a bad match. It was just a match that was there.
Yeah, that's a really good way of summing it up, actually. Speaking of a match that was there, these transitions are getting worse as I'm getting closer to 7 a.m. But putting in some effort. Pac versus Hangman. The major positive was a British phrase accidentally getting used with Excalibur exclaiming, he decked the bastard, which is a very British phrase. It just Oh, Hangman just decked the bastard. It was like, he didn't mean to say it like that, but it's a very British phrase, and thumbs up for me hearing that from an American commentator on television. Like, not the phrase I never thought I'd hear, and I'm just thankful I did. Match itself, another solid bout between Pac and Hangman.
This was the match I was looking forward to the most coming in, and it delivered for me. It just wasn't as good, obviously, as the main event was. I still think it was the second best match on the show, though. And I thought it was great. I thought, we talked about the counters in the women's title match. I thought the counters in this one were solid as well. They just weren't as fast, but there were some really great spots where counters happened that you weren't expecting. I loved that Paige was the first guy to really be able to get out of the brutalizer. And I thought that they've been selling for the last couple of weeks that Paige was going to the buckshot lariat as his finisher now, and so it was a nice change of pace that he missed the buckshot, but he was still able to win with a deadeye in the middle of the ring. So I mean, I really and I love the callback where Pac tried to do the same thing to Paige that he did on the TV episode with the low blow, and Paige caught it, turned it into the a deadeye attempt, and went to the brutalizer. I mean, I thought there was just so many great counters and callbacks in this one, and I just really enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, I will just say, apologies if you can hear a noise. It's now gotten so late / early in the morning that my heating's coming on. So you're going to be able to just hear the whole thing's whirring and making noise in the background. So, yes. It's November. We've got the heating on now. So, yeah. But, yeah, for me, it's just a really, really solid second match of the night, which didn't blow me away, but was also really, really good at the same time as well. I was generally shocked by Hangman's win, just because for me, as I said earlier, that I was picturing Pac as one of those potential next world title contenders, be it just on television or whatever. But the fact he lost obviously completely outrights that, just because how strongly Pac had been built till that point. Like, Hangman getting a win over him is actually pretty momentous for Hangman, who had been on a kind of curve down and slightly struggling himself. Even though he was having good performances, he wasn't winning. Whilst Pac was doing that and winning. So I just assumed he was going to. But no, Hangman winning was a genuine surprise, even though it was a very even match as well. Like, it was never just Pac definitely on top and Hangman fighting from, trying to get back into the match. It's like, no, they both had swings of momentum, and that was kind of like what led into the end as well, if I'm right. Like, Hangman was first on top in that sequence. It wasn't a Hangman fighting back, hitting his 5 moves of doom or anything. So no, it was even throughout the entire match, and arguably it was kind of like Omega, where Pac was his own defeat in a way, going for one too many moves that he just flat out missed. Like, he went for the Black Arrow. I think it's called the Black Arrow now, that he's a baddie. He missed that as well, after also missing a Phoenix Splash as well early in the match, and that's kind of what cost him in the end. Hangman was able to just roll out the way, whatever. It's the Zack Sabre Jr. quote. Like, if Kota Ibushi is up on a barricade, he's going to Muso on you, just move. Just move out the way.
My favorite WrestleMania main event ever was WrestleMania 24, where it was Undertaker against Edge, and the reason it's my favorite is it's such a great counter wrestling match. Like every time Taker goes to do something, Edge counters it. But then the match ends where Edge hits the spear, and this time it's Taker countering it into the Hell's Gate, or Devil's Triangle. I can't remember which one he was calling it at the time. But, Edge ends up tapping out even though he hits his finisher. It looks like he's about to win. That's what this match reminded me of. They were countering each other all over the place in this one. And I just love those kind of matches where like it's, whichever guy is able to out wrestle the other guy at the end is the guy that's going to win. And that's what Paige was able to do here at the end. So
yeah, it's simplified it down. Like, I've taken into account everything going on around it and what led into it, but yeah, in the actual match itself, they simplified it right down, and that's kind of what I really, really liked about it. So yeah, thumbs up all
brilliant.
round.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, my second best match of the night. So
right, so this is a match of two parts. It's the white hot opener of not Sammy, he came in afterwards, of Santana and Ortiz, or they called Pride and Powerful, versus the Young Bucks. A white hot opener with a moment after the match that sent the crowd into like an awesome frenzy of, oh my god, this is fantastic. They absolutely loved it, with the Rock and Roll Express joining the brawl to fight off the victors, Santana, of the Inner Circle, with one of them, Ricky Morton, that's it, yeah, with Ricky Morton hitting a Canadian Destroyer and then doing a tope suicida through the ropes, the crowd going crazy. As again, he was on the Rock and Roll Express were on the GCW shows, and everybody went crazy when they started hitting destroyers and things. It's because like, you're in your late 60s, like, well, how are you able to do this? It was it was awesome to see it then and now. For me, the awesome part was seeing how the crowd reacted to it. Just like, they were absolutely shocked that these much older wrestlers who should have no right doing these moves were doing suicide dives and destroyers. The crowd went crazy for it and popped like mad. So that was a great visual.
And as usual, Robert Gibson was just standing there looking like a dummy while Morton did everything.
It's really because in terms of like the way that he stands, the way that his kind of presence is, he reminds me so much of Nick Jackson. It's kind of, I look at him and go, oh, that's going to be Nick Jackson in so many years' time. Especially as Nick Jackson is the risk taker now, so likely when he reaches that age, he might not be able to.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like a glimpse into the future for Nick Jackson.
The way I've always seen the Bucks is like Jackson's like the athletic, flying guy, and Matt's the one that actually is like the glue that holds the team together.
Yeah, he's the brains behind the operation. Whilst
he is.
Yeah, but for the match itself was a nice hot opener. It was another one where it didn't blow me away, and maybe it was one of those that the crowd would have liked it to continue a little bit longer. But it was totally solid, and I was into everything that was happening. And it's one of those where it did end up just like, oh, that was the ending. Oh, I didn't not enjoy it. I definitely did enjoy it. But what happened afterwards, obviously, just the whole crowd was immediately lifted anyway. So perfectly fine with it, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was meant to blow us away. I think it was just meant to get the show started off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have the opening match like blow away everything else that's coming later on in the card. But I think at some point we'll get like a more main event style match between these two teams, and we can be blown away at that point. Maybe they'll facing, wrestling for the championships or some kind of a gimmick match or something. But yeah, I think this one was just meant to get the show on the right foot, and also to get the Matt and Nick, so that they're like we talked about earlier, that they're on the down foot again, so they have to build themselves back up.
Yeah,
they've lost like all their big matches now in AEW.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, every single one, which is it's all part of that, breaking them down so that you can build them back up at some point. And as we were saying when we started this show, actually, I was about to tie it up, but we've not talked about. Do you want to talk about Bea Priestley versus Britt Baker before I do my tie up?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I mean, there wasn't really a lot to talk about, and it was good, it was decent, and I think Britt's getting better and better as a performer. But I mean, there really wasn't, I thought, a lot to that match. It wasn't very long, first of all. Secondly, like you said, it should have been on the main card, and it wasn't. But yeah, I mean, Baker, I think, is looking a lot better than she did before. And then the stuff at the end with Brandy and Awesome Kong was great as well.
Yeah,
I really liked the Brandy Rhodes modification of her character that's happened the last 3 weeks or so.
Somebody did tweet out when Joe Janela got his hair tied, was like, "Quick, Brandy, come out! You're the only in-world character that can cut hair. Quick!" So Joey. But
well played.
well, I really like the Kong's character feels like a mix between the voodoo kind of karma character from WWE and the destruction of Kong from TNA. It's like a somewhere in between the two, because it's obviously very, very voodoo, this character,
Right.
whatever it is, whatever it's going to be. And I'm assuming Brandy adds to that. Someone made a point of her doing this character and then her walking out with Cody would be quite a contrast, but luckily Cody's been doing stuff with MJF and Dustin and DDP or whatever, so she can not do that and just be the manager for Awesome Kong and go to this weird voodoo world with magic and whatever. I'm interested to see how that kind of character works in AEW's world, because of course, like, Dark Order hasn't really gone over that well, even though they're really good wrestlers. That the actual gimmicks just not really worked. So I'm interested to see if this also kind of supernaturally voodoo kind of character, if this works as well. It might do, just because of how great Awesome Kong is, and then how great Brandy is at the manager type of style as well. I think it'll work.
I think it will. I think Dark Order didn't work because the kind of gimmick they're doing there, they had to go farther with it than they have. You know, it's just, you know, it's really been more like creepy crawly than it has been scary, and I think it should have been scary.
Oh, that's a shout. Yeah. Whilst this dives more into the what's going on with you, Brandy, kind of questions as well, as in it's making you want answers to questions, which the Dark Order never really did. The reaction to that was just, oh, that's a bit weird. Whilst with Brandy, you are at least intrigued to a point of, oh, what's going on here? And that's definitely helped by the fact that it is Kong, who is such a respected wrestler.
Indeed, yeah. I thought it was a weird choice for them to attack the Priestley, since Priestley's like, you know, the heel of the two versus, you know, between her and Britt. But you know, it's another way that AEW's been, you know, great in the fact that they don't mind having, you know, well-rounded characters rather than people that are just like face and heel. You know, like Kenny Omega, like he's kind of fluctuated. He and Moxley kind of fluctuated in this battle between them as to which one was the more heelish between the two of them. You know.
Yeah,
just for an example.
Yeah, yes, definitely, really, really a fan of that sort of thing, and really just to bring this show to a close and like the final thoughts on the show, Full Gear. It was just another solid AEW show, and it was another one that every single match was different as well. So they're once again bringing that variety. But I've seen a couple of complaints calling that type of thing schizophrenic. For me, that's a variety show. Like, every single match is different. Like, not one of them gels together or feels the same. And like, I couldn't be more of a fan than that. Especially if like look at the two main event matches, or the main event and the not main event. You had your massive bells and whistles character kind of wrestling match with Cody versus Jericho, like your old school 80s. Lots of older tropes brought back once again by Cody. Then you've got your hardcore brawl type of thing, and it's just like, yeah, those two matches couldn't be any different, yet I enjoyed them both. And that is, I love that about AEW. There is such variety across and especially their pay-per-views. There's such variety across their pay-per-views. Not one match is the same, and I can't even say that about NXT. Like on NXT, there are a few matches that are technically they are similar in terms of their actual like type of wrestling they're presenting, whilst compared to AEW, like even that isn't the same from match to match. Never mind the actual format of the thing. So
right, yeah. Absolutely, totally agree with that. Plus NXT is too polished, and it makes it feel like it's choreographed.
Yeah, but that's the same issue with WWE, really. That just the Hollywood style of gloss that takes away all kind of grit that's there, and I like wrestling having a bit of grit.
Me too.
So, yeah, so I really like that.
And I think, you know, especially when you talk about Pac versus Hangman, and you talk about the women's match and the main event, and then the unsanctioned fight. I mean, all of those had a lot of grit to them.
Yeah, 100%. And nothing was more gritty than the main event, although grit's kind of still underselling it in terms of what it was.
Absolutely.
So another solid show from a pay-per-view from AEW, even though there's only been 5 shows, but we're already struggling because 3 of them begin with the letter F, and that's enough. That's enough to confuse us. So
they do. That's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. So from Fighter Fest to Fight for the Fallen to Full Gear, hopefully next time it begins with a different letter so my brain can figure it out easier. I'm simple like that. That gets me. Right.
No, the next one's going to be called Friend and Foes.
Friend and Foes? Oh, no. If they stick with it as a joke, that will cause confusion with Imp. That'll be too far gone. Right, so it is about...
because their March one's going to be called Flying Trapeze. No, it was a solid show with some great stuff in it. So, if you get a chance to watch and you haven't yet, definitely check it out.
And as it's reaching about 7 a.m. for me, yes, my eyes are very, very blurry. You can hear my throat going as well. So, I'm gonna go to bed and miss Sunday. I'll give myself one job to maybe watch the New Japan show that aired, so I'll be like in a zombie state for the entire day. So Sunday's a write-off. Enjoy your Sundays, everybody, because I won't be seeing mine.
Yeah, and Jeff and I'll be with you on Monday for Kingdom of Honor, and then we'll be back with you on Wednesday for Dynamite After Dark, after Dynamite goes off the air.
And I myself will be going live on Thursday on LOP Radio and both YouTube, like this show did here. I am joined by Jeremy Donovan of the Keeping It Strong Style podcast, and we're going to be talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling. We'll talk about the show that I've just talked about that I'm going to watch. I need to have watched it by Thursday. So I'm going to talk about that on the show and kind of what's happening with Wrestle Kingdom with somebody who's actually keeping up with it because he does a New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast every single week. So, yeah, that'll help. Because I'm struggling to keep up with everything. So that'll be a nice catch-up for me as well.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to that so I can get caught up myself.
That's pretty much why I've listened to their show like most weeks, just because like if I'm struggling to find time to definitely keep up with everything, so I'll just listen to a podcast. That'll blast through everything for me.
And I think you and I talked about this briefly, but I think the current plan, or at least one thing that we're kicking around, just so all our listeners know, is doing both on the 4th and the 5th, doing right after it. Each Wrestle Kingdom show, doing it a 3-way weave with me, Jeff, and Imp talking about an aftershock right after the Wrestle Kingdom goes off the air. So
yeah, so a double day duty of doing a Wrestle Kingdom coverage on Lords of Pain Radio, like a proper show just like this, where we talk about everything that happened. And if you've ever listened to any of our past, because we've done this before, the Wrestle Kingdom coverage thing. Pretty soon, the first time we ever did a show together might have been that I've become less sorry that's true, but we've definitely done
it was either Wrestle Kingdom or Dominion. I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the two big ones, though. Yeah. So,
but yeah, we went almost 3 hours, I think. So to do that 2 days in a row, maybe we'll tempt ourselves on the first one, but because it'll be late for you, it'll be fine for me. The reverse of today's show.
Yeah, I'll just have some adrenaline handy so I can just slap it right into my heart if I'm about to pass out on the second day.
I generally had, because again it's it's gone into morning now. Someone did come down and I just made them refill my glass for me.
How kind of them.
Anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at the damn Implicat. You can follow Jan on, even he's not on as much, but you can follow Jan on Twitter at
XanMan LOP.
And if you got anything you want to plug for Kingdom of Honor and the stuff you're doing with Jeff.
Kingdom of Honor will be talking probably more about this show, I'm guessing, and probably NWA Power, maybe some MLW. We also have our Patreon site, Kingdom of Honor, or patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor, where we have our we're currently covering Jessica Jones and the old ECW pay-per-views. And then, of course, on Dynamite After Dark, we'll be talking about Dynamite right after it goes off the air this coming Wednesday. We do it every Wednesday on LOP Radio.
And already plugged my stuff. My column went up earlier today. If you want to go check that out, that's mostly the reason I'm so tired. It's because I again woke up at 8 a.m. and it's now 7, so 23 hours. Well done me. Well done me. So that column went up earlier today. If you want to go look at that, and I put the Full Gear logo on John Moxley's head, so that he's a Full Gear head. And I didn't write that. I didn't write that down. It's just a visual pun that no one will get. So when people listen to this show, so I was happy with it. Anyway, with that, I take the praise. With that, I am now ready to bid adieu. Another solid AEW show. I think we've enjoyed every single one so far. So it's such a great streak to be on at this point. And we'll be back for whenever AEW's next show is. We will be back. And I think the next show we'll be doing together will be the Wrestle Kingdom shows in January as well. That's not that far away at the moment. So it's nearly Christmas, everyone. Get excited.
Indeed.
It's Christmas shopping time for me.
Yeah, that's all I've got. So we'll try to do better next time.
And it's turned into a perfect mashup of the way we end our own shows. And with that, I bid you adieu. Adios.